This is our second session of our year-long journey series for the 24-25 school year. And this one is titled as the Ecosystem Approach, Learning Cohort. And we are focusing today on the ECM element number 2, which is culturally responsive and preserving environments. So I hope you are here to gain some new information and bring back to your wonderful programs. I am Jennifer Jones. I am a language and literacy instructional facilitator for the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy. Some of my core values are family, love my family. I am originally from Louisiana, new to Georgia, been almost 3 years since I've been here. Really big on integrity and discipline. And I've been an early childhood educator for 16 plus years.
And I'm Nathan Thompson, and I share the same role with Jennifer. We are colleagues as facilitators, and we work with birth through 5 programs primarily. And my core values are family, connection, and authenticity. I've going on almost 25 years now as an educator. I've been in leadership roles, a coach, and I consider myself an activist, and I have lived my whole life in the Atlanta area.
All right, so the Cox Campus Way. So these are our 5 core values. And so we're going to start off with rewarding. And so our hope is for all our members to become your best selves through the various experiences offered on our Cox Campus website. The second one is empowering. So we want you to know and feel that you are valued. The next one is connection or connecting. Cox Campus is a shared space where educators from all walks of life can come together and learn and grow. The fourth one is safe. And so it's also a safe space where you can feel welcomed and accepted and get the answers that you need so that you can deepen your understanding and your practices in the classroom. And our last core value is essential. So you can rest assured that our Cox Campus will deliver current research and practices that are appropriate for you to learn and apply right away. And we always come back again and again to the website. So if you're not familiar with Cox Campus is our web-based platform where you can sign up here. You can access our website that you see on the screen here. Everything is free. Sorry. Everything is free on our website. Once you create your Cox Campus account, you have access to every resource and video that you see available on Cox Campus. So if you have a chance right now and you're not a member, go ahead and take advantage of that opportunity right now by visiting coxcampus.org.
All right, our objectives for today are we're going to review the 9 essential elements of an ecosystem. So this will be a review for those of you who were here in September. And if you're new, then it'll be good to look at it as well. Please take the ecosystem course if you haven't before our next one. And then we're going to reflect on element 1, observation. So if you were here last time, we're actually going to break into groups and reflect. So we'll have big groups. So hopefully there'll be some in each group who have had a chance to do an observation for that first element, safe and responsive climate. And that's when we'll break into groups and talk about the reflections. And then we'll jump into element 2 and do the same thing we did in September. We're going to look at the look-fors, the examples. We're going to talk about rating the criteria for classroom observations, and so that you feel equipped to go and do the observations for element 2. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we set goals and write those action steps. All right, so these are our norms. I like to go over these. In each meeting, we like to cover this and just set the norms for the meeting, make sure we're all on the same page here. And as I read these out and as you're looking at these, just put in the chat 1 or 2 that stand out to you that are really resonating with you today. So being open-minded and flexible to change. We're all agreeing to step up when needed, to play a part and interact in this group and in the topic, but also step back and let others have a chance to step up. We're agreeing to be present, respect the opinions and communication styles, all the different ones of each other, listen to understand. I like that one. Make sure we pause and reflect, but also that listening, and commit. Oh, and I covered that one. So commit to pause and reflect throughout. I'm also reading in the chat what people are saying, so I was getting distracted. Thank you for sharing the ones that resonate with you. Absolutely. And we'll move to the next slide. All right, so I want to recap what our purpose of this meeting is, of this series of sessions, a year-long journey ecosystem cohort. Our purpose here is to provide support for implementation of the ecosystem approach at a larger scale so that all children have an opportunity to be part of an effective ecosystem that is established in all 9 essential elements. We want to build community among a diverse group of individuals working towards positive relationships and progress in child outcomes in language and literacy development. So this is our community for this very purpose.
All right. So like Nathan said, in our objectives, we are going to review the 9 ecosystem elements. And so if you see here, our ecosystem elements are organized into clusters. So we have a total of 3 clusters, I'm sorry. So you'll notice that each of the clusters will tell you, just based on their title, it tells you a little bit about focused on. So the climate cluster has safe and responsive climate, culturally responsive and preserving environment, and consistent routines, rituals, and transitions. And so I'll share a little bit about each of those elements. And so the very first one, element 1, safe and responsive climate, which is the one that we covered in the month of September. This practices support language learning use in the classroom. This is where trusting and nurturing relationships, where children are all feeling safe enough to learn and engage with adults and peers in their classroom and around the site. Element 2, the practices promote respect for all children and promote diversity, to know children that are, to know that they're valued and they're accepted and all see themselves to be accepted and represented in their classrooms. All children should feel valued and appreciated no matter their differences. And that's the element that we're going to focus on today. The next element in that cluster is the consistent routines, rituals, and transitions. So this element focuses on children's socio-emotional development and preparedness to learn through consistency, predictability throughout the day. And this element supports children's emotional safety and their independence. The second cluster is the content cluster, which has children as conversational partners, integrated planning and teaching around an anchor book, and focus on emergent literacy. So children as conversational partners, this one focuses on the language that children use for communication, their development of their oral language development with vocabulary and comprehension. So it helps promote critical thinking in conversations and throughout storybook read-alouds. Element 5, which is integrated planning and teaching around an anchor book. So this is where you're going to practice some opportunities for children to extend their learning using a particular book in your classroom based around a theme or something that relates to your instruction for the day. Element 6, focus on emergent literacy. This one, you're going to spend time on building phonological awareness, alphabet knowledge, concepts of print, and so forth and so on, as far as helping children learn how to sound and blend and segment sounds to create words so that they can communicate well. And the last cluster is the connections cluster. So the elements in the connections cluster has observation, and progress monitoring, intentional supports for dual language learners, and strong partnerships with families. So element 7, observation in progress monitoring. This one, you practice on ways to observe your children and use those observation results to create learning experiences to refine or adjust the teaching in your classroom to make it more effective in addressing their particular needs. Element 8, in intentional supports for DLLs, this one is for your elements to come to life for all children who are developing in more than one language. And so you're making sure that your learning experiences are equitable for all children, especially those that speak another language outside of their first language. And element 9, strong partnerships for families. This one practices where you ensure that learning continues beyond the immediate classroom bubble of life. And so you also emphasize the importance of creating active co-constructors, which involve families and teachers and directors, everyone who has some type of relationship or connection to that child, because we are all a part of that ecosystem. And that sums up all 3 clusters, and we're going to dive into our expectations for the cohort.
All right, so we covered the purpose of why we're here, and we covered the 9 essential elements. Thank you, Jennifer, for going through those. And just so you know, we are only focused on number 2 today. We focused on the first one last month, so we do 1 per month. And so we'll go to the next slide and cover some of our expectations here. All right, so we're going to do 1 essential element per month, as I mentioned. We'll talk about why they're important each time, why each one is important, what each element looks like, what are we looking for, and then the observations for each element, go over how to do those observations, what you need for that, and then set you up for action steps to set for each element so you can set goals around the elements after you observe them.
So right now we are going to take that pause and we are going to reflect. So as mentioned earlier, those of you that attended our September session, you should have had some time between then and now to go into your classrooms and do some observations, do some ratings. And so that information you want to share with your group today. And so we'll have some questions that we'll bring to the breakout. And so we're going to share those questions. There's only 3 questions that you'll take with you to the breakout rooms.
The conversation in my group that we were at is like what that last question, because we kind of got to that at the end there. And my first suggestion is the courses. So on the ECM for that particular one, we're looking at Build My Brain, Power of Language for infants and toddlers, or Power of Language preschool and pre-K. Also for preschool and pre-K classrooms, there's a supporting dual language learners right from the start and connecting the dots for dual language learners. So those are just really good first steps, is taking that course. And then if you're in a leadership role or a coaching role and you can have a conversation around it, you know, making sure they understand what those courses are covering, then observing again. Somebody mentioned modeling as one of the things they've already tried to do. So that can also be a step. And we have a whole coaching course. We have 4 coaching courses on Cox campus that go through that whole process. But yes, taking that course will be first. All right.
Thanks, Nathan, for sharing that. So we are now going to talk about the ECM. So we've been talking about the elements. And so now is our time to talk about their tool that goes with these elements. And so the ECM 2.0, it's a tool that's intended for some self-reflection and some self-growth. And so it supports the implementation of best practices that will lead you to positive child outcomes. The focus of this document is on language and literacy. So you'll see primarily just language and literacy resources and information. Specifically, this tool is a guide, and it's a guide for facilitators like us. It's a guide for instructional coaches. It's a guide for site directors and other center staff that assess and monitor children throughout the day. And so the information that you input into this document will contribute to the construction of the child's brain and getting it ready and equipped for reading and learning experiences. And so there's a link that we'll drop in the chat where you can download this document for free. It's also on Cox campus for free. And so we do want you to download and print, you can also type into this document. So it is PDF fillable. And so please take advantage of this document because it'll definitely help you throughout this cohort and beyond. Okay, so just like the ECM is a document, this is also another document. It's a companion to the ECM 2.0 document. This document, it describes all 9 elements in further detail. So it gives you some examples, it gives you video samples, and it gives you opportunities to further your learning and your practices. So we also are going to drop this link in the chat so that you can download this document so that you can work hand in hand with the 2 documents as you improve the language and literacy development at your sites.
All right, we're gonna jump into element 2 and make sure you're prepared for that observation. And just want to mention, if you're not in a classroom or a site, we had one person who kind of has a different role as a speech pathologist, and but she was able to share some things that she's been able to observe being in some classrooms that she visits. So that was helpful. Just finding ways, if you got a child who's this age and you take them and drop them off, if you know of a site you can visit, you know, within the month before we meet again, anything that you can do. And if you just don't have access to a site and you really are still needing this information, you can look up classroom observations on YouTube. Usually they're closer to a 3, but you might be able to critique some of them. And so just trying to give different ways that you can do observations. All right, so element 2 is culturally responsive and preserving environment. So we're going to talk about what that is, what that means, what are we looking for. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so what is it? An early learning classroom does not exist in isolation of a larger socio-cultural whole. To make these learning experiences more relevant and to foster children's critical capacity to share their lives and our world, an early learning environment must take into account the children's cultures, prior experiences, and frames of references. In a culturally responsive and preserving classroom, teachers create equity as they value and integrate children's cultures, languages, history, abilities, interests, identity, and engage authentically with all children and their families and communities. So it's about learning about the families. Teachers support children to develop confidence and pride in their identity, to acknowledge and celebrate diversity, to recognize unfairness and build skills to reject injustice. Teachers also examine their own identities and reflect on potential biases that might interfere with how they perceive, treat, and interact with children and families. And we do have our course on implicit bias that you can take as well, which helps you look at yourself as a teacher. So why does this matter? Culture plays a critical role in shaping children's thinking about themselves and the world, about who they are and who they want to become. So we want to affirm their linguistic and cultural backgrounds to contribute to their sense of identity, promote equity, agency, and the development of empathy in all children. So all children are going to benefit from this culture being made visible and included in all classrooms and activities. So the lesson plan should reflect it. So we expect excellence in and for every child, making explicit connection to their cultural background, lifting up their community's cultural wealth, and supporting the children as they continue to develop their skills, identity, and capacity to thrive and contribute. So that's why this matters. And one thing that's referred to in this course, a term that we refer to, and I'm going to stop sharing if I can. Hold on, it's making me do a new share. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing. We can get the PowerPoint back up, please. So we call it windows and mirrors in the course. And this term refers to windows as looking into other cultures and mirrors the reflection of your own culture. And sometimes I notice when we're looking at this particular element, when I'm working with coaches and teachers and leaders, we do look at multicultural elements in the classroom, but we're also looking at the reflection of the cultures of the children. And that's what this particular element is looking at most, is are we seeing the lesson plan, the activities, the environment reflect the families of the children? This is their school family, so do they feel welcome? Do they matter? So let's go to the next slide. All right, so we're going to look at this video, and this is from the course, and it's when I'm interviewing someone and asked a question in the course, they answered how this plays a part in their center.
First question, why is it critical to include cultural elements, and what does it mean to be responsive to culture?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it has several layers to it. It's important to be a culturally responsive place because this is how children and their families come to us. It's how they see the world. It's how they express themselves. They can't do it apart from their culture. So the only way that we can really see children and hear children and understand them is also to take note of their culture and understand that lens.
This is fast.
And it's important for us to be responsive and very welcoming of that so that children feel completely comfortable and excited about expressing themselves and learning.
Okay, so can you paint a picture for me? What would we expect to see in a classroom where children's cultures are preserved?
I think it's important for us not to assume we know more about the culture than what the family brings to us or invites us to see. So it's very important to pick up on their cues and take what they bring to us in the classroom, understanding they really are the experts of their culture. Let them show us what they're very proud of and what they use to express themselves culturally. So also in the classroom, we have fabrics, we have colors. In our play centers, we have foods from different cultures. In our play center, we'll have an Ethiopian coffee ceremony set up. We'll have Syrian foods. There will be Play-Doh so that we can pretend to make bread from different countries. So with many countries represented and cultures represented, we'll have a lot going on in the classroom.
Wow, I love how you embrace the culture of the children and
All right, thank you for stopping that right there. So what I would like to hear from you as I move on. I'm going to show some pictures here. So right here, we're looking at linguistically preserving. So thinking about the child's languages. And so what I would like for you to do is put in the chat some things that you've seen, maybe something like this that you're seeing in the picture, something she was talking about, or anything that you've seen where you felt like the children's language was a part of the classroom. The family's languages, maybe you have seen dual language learners, just some examples that you have seen in your classroom or classrooms you've been to. What are some examples of being linguistically preserving the language? Welcome and goodbye posted on the doors in home languages, having books in their language. Anyone can unmute too if you'd like to share out things around the classroom printed. Yes, the visuals. You can see there are pictures here to support, and then there are languages. So it says dad, and then it says dad in these different languages. Labels in different languages, absolutely. So this is a really important part of the culturally preserving because language is a part of our culture. So we are going to talk about the dual language learner aspect of that essential element towards later on this school year, but this deals with that as well because it is a huge part of the culture. Vocabulary words, yes. Showing pictures from home, different wall decor. Thank you for sharing. You can continue to share in the chat if you would like. We're going to go to the next one. And in this one, we're looking at specifically different things to do with culture. So I'm going to play. Oh, and she's given an example here about using language in the classroom. So we'll look at this example first.
Today we're going to sing our hello song using the word hello in Arabic. And the word is the same in several people's languages in our class. It's the same in Noor and Eliana and Yusuf and Zaytuna and Susan and Jonathan and Mohibala. That's right. And Mohibala too. Right? You guys ready? You're in here. You're the last name in my page, okay? Salam Noor. Noor is our friend. Salam Noor. And here we go again. Salam Eliana. Eliana is our friend. Salam Eliana. And here we go again. Salam Yusuf. Yusuf is our friend. Salam Yusuf. And here we go again.
Now R for Robert. Minglaba Robert. Robert is our friend. Minglaba Robert. And here we go again. Salam Zubair. Zubair is our friend. Salam Zubair. And here we go again.
All right. So I love that video. All right. So now put in the chat some examples you've seen of welcoming families, not just through language, but also things like this is the some of the stuff in the dramatic play she mentioned in the video, the Ethiopian coffee ceremony. What are some ways that we can bring or that you've seen classrooms reflect the cultures of the classroom beyond language? Food from different cultures, yeah, that's a big one. Decorations from home. Oh, making clay lamps, I like that for Diwali. Sharing food from different cultures is a big one. All right. Yeah, and just seeing those dolls and those pictures, the menus that are from the children's culture. So tapping into that and talking to those parents and bringing that stuff into the classroom, into the families, having that communication with the community and the families is really helpful. Musical instruments, yes. Art center, highlighting different art cultures, usually Spanish and English. Okay. All right, we'll go on to the next one. You guys can still put
Dressing up.
Dressing up, yeah.
Yep, dress up, yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Clothing. All right. And this is going to be an example of a couple of teachers planning around culture. So really incorporating cultures, being multicultural with the windows and reflecting the cultures of the children in the classroom with the mirror. And this is a small example, a little snippet of a conversation of two teachers planning.
I looked at the books for our upcoming theme on cultures, and of the books on our list, this is one I really liked, My Father's Shop. It takes place in Northern Africa. I don't know if you noticed that. I think it would appeal to a lot of our families. I think there's familiar things to a lot of our families in it. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a good book.
Do you think these markets are kind of similar to what you see around
Yes.
the Middle East also, besides
yes,
in Africa?
I think in Africa and some parts in the Middle East have this kind of shop. Yeah.
All right, we'll use this book.
Okay.
What should our focus words be?
So let's do pattern
Okay. Because the
And-
rugs have patterns.
yes.
Okay.
and imitate.
Imitate. Oh, because everybody imitates the rooster in their own
Yes,
language.
right.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, and language.
Okay.
Yeah, because you know, the rooster say hello in each language,
Yeah.
right?
And our children all
language.
speak different languages,
Different languages.
so that's an important vocabulary word.
Yes.
What should we use for props?
How about a person made of paper? And,
Oh yeah, that's a good idea.
and a rooster.
Okay,
Yeah, so
that's good.
we don't want many things. We don't want to bring many things to the children, just simple thing to let them understand the story.
Okay. I have some mint in my garden. We could
Yes.
bring for a prop. I
Yes.
could bring some for your class too.
Yes,
I think
please.
they could smell it and touch it. That'd be fun.
Yeah, smell it and touch it. I like that.
All right, let's
That'll
think
be
of
so
some connected
fun.
activities. Do you have any ideas for some connected activities we could do?
How about so bringing or printing many kinds of frogs all around the world and
Oh yeah, bring pictures.
bring
That'd be good.
pictures, yeah, and make rugs from this wool.
Okay. One of my students' mothers actually made rugs in Afghanistan, so
Wow.
I don't know, maybe she has pictures or she could talk about it.
Yes.
So I'll ask her.
Yes, please. How about so another activity like bringing so like pretending that there's a shop and with a person that made of paper.
Oh yeah,
and
that'd
this-
be fun.
Yeah, and we can ask the families to bring things from their cultures.
Oh
and,
yeah, that would
yes.
be great.
Yeah, and have a small market in our classes, right?
Maybe you could bring an example. So
Yeah.
you could say, this is from my country, and we
Yes.
can say, so that help the moms understand what we're asking them.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, that'd be
Yeah.
good.
And
What else?
what else?
Do you have an idea for a song? I don't.
Yes. So since this book talking about shop, so I have this song for let's go shopping, you and me, you and me.
Oh, I like that.
Let's go
That's
to the
perfect.
market, you and me, you and me.
Perfect.
yeah.
That's great. During circle time, we add in greeting the children in their home language.
Yes.
So when we sing, instead of saying hello to
Yes.
All right, so we saw some ideas around planning. I know that was kind of long, but just wanted to show you these two teachers working together, planning, and I heard them say, I could bring that for your classroom. So this was a common planning with two teachers in different classrooms working together. All right, Jennifer, let's take a look at the ECM on these in this element.
Yes. Okay, so if you have downloaded a copy of our ECM 2.0, we referenced the page here on the slide, so you can go to page 13 if you have it. If not, we did take a snippet of it. And so I just want to briefly describe what we do with this particular rating chart. So, So with the rating chart, you'll see that there are numbers. And so it's numbered 1 to 3. And so 1 being emerging. So this basically means that there's little to no evidence of things happening in that particular classroom based on the criteria and the factors in that classroom around this element. There's a 2, which means it's a developing classroom. So there are some things that you can see, you can hear, and you notice that's happening in this classroom based on the criteria under the developing column. And then 3, this classroom is very established. So they have strong evidence of a lot of things happening in this element based on the criteria that falls under this column. And we have 2 other ratings, which is called the midpoints. So it's a 1.5 or a 2.5. So the 1.5 is typically when you have a little bit of something happening in the 1 column and a little bit of things happening in the 2 column, but they're not quite a 1 because there's more than just 1 thing's happening. And they're not quite a 2 because they're doing just a little bit of 1 and 2. And so you would rate this classroom as a 1.5. The 2.5 works the same way. And so they are probably doing everything in the developing column and they're doing some of the things in the established. And so, but they're not quite established to get a 3. And so we'll talk about some ways that you can rate your classrooms a little bit better. We'll give some examples, and you can always use your companion document, which is the Closer Look document, for you to go back and get more information on what that looks like. So there is a section in the companion document that gives you more examples of what things should look like and sound like in the classroom. Okay, so this page here, page 41 in your ECM, so this is a snippet of the observation form. So we do give you 3 types of observation forms that you can use. This is just one of them. And so in here, you're gonna rate at the end once you've documented all of your notes. So if there's some evidence, you're gonna put those notes under the sum column, which is the 2. If there is minimal to not much happening in this classroom, you're gonna put those notes, things that you see, in here or not, in the 1 column. And if you have strong evidence that you're noticing in that classroom, you're gonna note things in the established column. And so now we are going to spend anywhere from about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how conversations are going. So like we said, you should have observed some classrooms from between the last visit and this one. And so that information we're gonna use for you guys to consider when you're doing your ratings. So there is a short video that we want you to watch, and we want you to reflect on that video and then go to your breakout rooms for you to discuss with your group members what you noticed, what you heard, and how would you rate based on the criteria that you are presented.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Very well, thank you.
And you?
And you.
Oh, that sounded good.
job.
Good morning.
Maybe there's a brief weather check and
All right, I know that was short. What you gotta look at what you saw in the classroom, what you heard, and we're just gonna assume here that, and it is the case in this classroom, that there are several children who do speak Spanish in the classroom and children who speak English. So knowing that and knowing just what you saw, let's see how you would rate this, and we'll get into our groups. Oh, again, good conversation there.
Same,
If we
Yeah.
just had more time in a day.
I know.
I
Very
do look forward to discussing this more next month, though, after you've seen, done some observations, because you might pick up on some things, but really, really good insights here.
Mhm.
Looking at the video and then comparing it to the rating scale. Now, I want to show you, before we move on, another part of the day in this classroom, another part of actually this group, and we're going to play it. And I want to see if you think, you can put in the chat or unmute and let me know if you think you would change your rating based on this information, based on this observation.
So let's do a little brainstorming. Who remembers this book, The Little Blue Truck?
yes.
The Little Blue Truck had lots of animals in there.
But here are the 2 same books.
2 same books, yes.
Yes,
One is in
one is-
English and one
one is
is
in
in Spanish.
Spanish.
Miss Stephanie is going to read it to you in Spanish.
There's a
All right, so anything, would you change your rating? Still the same? What are your thoughts?
Yes.
Change it. I would change it. Yes.
I mean, I
Yes.
would change it, but the teacher really didn't do anything in another language. So, I mean,
Right.
would it be justifying? Because the teacher said Miss Stephanie's going to read it in Spanish, but Miss Stephanie didn't read it in Spanish that we saw. Had we seen it, I would say, yes, change it to a 2. But I don't know.
Yeah, and we had a 1.5 in our groups, but I think, yeah, you make a good point. I want to know more still. I think it would help me to know that. It'd make me want to stay a little longer and
Mhm.
see what happens or ask that question. And one thing to remember about this, especially if you are a leader, coach, or you work in a classroom, if you have access to a classroom at multiple parts of the day,
Mhm.
you can spend some time in there. It's so important. And even if you already go in the classroom, I work with Jennifer, and I work with coaches in some of our partnerships, and I'll ask them as we're looking at this, what did you see yesterday? What are you going to see tomorrow? So it's not like a rating where the state comes in. Like I used to work for Quality Rated, that 3 hours was it, right? That's what I had to go by. I've never been to this school. I've never been to this county sometimes. So I'm walking in this school, I'm getting my 3 hours. That's it. I got to get really good notes. But in this case, we're leaving it up to the leadership of the site and the teachers and whoever, what we call co-constructors of the ecosystem, to work together to say, do we agree this is where this classroom is? What information do we need? Because this is not meant to be evaluative in the way there's a number system, but there's no star system. It's not something you're going to post. I mean, this is the numbers are just to help us have the data so we know where we need growth and what to work on. It's not to just go, oh, I hope I see a 3 when I go in there. You know, like I coaches who really are passionate about coaching and understand this process, they're pretty excited about those 1.5s and 2s because they know like that's where they can work on the goals. So just keep that in mind that there's more to it. I know we're showing you little snippets and a lot of the things we show you are in the 3, but we tried to make this a little more, where would it be? So using these examples is helpful. So hopefully we can come up as we move along in the months, come up with some other not so 3s or, but we're going to do our best. But this particular one, we were able to find this example. So I do appreciate everybody's input, and Jennifer and I had the same thoughts that you all had as we were looking at this. You know, we need more information, but based on what you see, maybe a 1.5, maybe a 2. Yes, they have the languages, so they know about it, but are they really incorporating this? I want to see the lesson plan. I want to see what they're doing, how they're planning, and how they're incorporating this. So thank you for taking the time to do that.
Yes. Same. So, like I said, our group was spot on as well with the 1.5. And they did well with their justifications as well. So, but just keep in mind that just when you go in the classroom and one part of the day, not necessarily a true reflection of that classroom. So you have to go in multiple times, you know, at different parts of the day to get what you really need from that classroom. So good job, guys. Okay, so this here is just a summary of the process that we take when we are preparing to use the ECM. So we definitely want to make sure that we are following the observe, reflect, and take action process. So make sure that you are observing your classrooms first, gathering all that pertinent information that you need to devise up plans and share feedback with your teachers and staff. And then after that, you want to take some time to go back and reflect. So don't be so quick to share right away, you know, that within the next few minutes after you're done. Take some time, go back to your office space, reflect on those notes, and really use those 2 documents, the ECM and the companion, the closer look document, for you to really hone in on your notes and make sure that you're giving the most reflective information, most objective information. So if there's any notes that you notice, oh, I was being subjective. Oh, this sounds like an opinion, or this sounds like, you know, I'm being biased about something. This is your time to be reflective on your notes and then prepare some time to take action and, you know, schedule some time to sit with your teachers and really dive in and create those goals and action steps to bring change. So this slide here is just some examples when you are setting goals and creating those action steps. These are some examples of what you can do with your staff. These are some steps that you can write down on an action plan for a staff. You want them to take some related courses on Cox Campus. You may want to share a resource from Cox Campus with that teacher. You may want to encourage them to implement specific teaching practices, develop some common planning time. If there's some designated time that you can provide for your teachers, use it, take advantage of it. If you have those floaters, you know, your subs, you know, say, this is designated time that I want to give to my staff so that they can come out of their classrooms and sit and work with each other and talk about, you know, the upcoming plans for the week or the month, or, you know, if they have time, day by day, you know, just really have some time to talk with each other. And another one is some self-reflection time. If you want staff to observe in their own classrooms by setting up a device where they can record themselves and have some time to go back in and let me watch what I did today. Let me listen to how I spoke to my kids today. Stuff like that. So these are just some examples of things that you can write down as action steps on your plans.
Thank you all for your participation today. Just want to review what our objectives were. We had an ecosystem review. We looked at element 1, reflections from the observations, and then we dove into element 2, the culturally responsive and preserving environment. So that was just a kind of recap of our objectives and what we focused on for today. Now let's look at our next steps. All right, so the next steps, if you haven't taken the course or completed the course, please complete the ecosystem course on coxcampus.org. And if you have, always go back and review. You can review the different areas that we're covering, the essential elements. So also review that ECM 2.0 and a closer look document. We saw some people who were definitely on it today, knew the pages and everything. So I appreciate your work that you've done and your preparation around this. And then we're going to go in and rate element 2 in a classroom. Check your email for any follow-up. Join us again on November 14th, and be sure to share out with other leaders. We welcome more to join because we are doing this in increments by element. You can jump on, somebody can jump on next month and learn about the wrap up of element 2, and then learn about element 3.
See you guys next month. Thank you so much.
Thank you.